Have you ever felt life's challenges stacking up like scenes from a movie pushing you toward your breaking point? Imagine, just for a moment, that these very obstacles are not setbacks, but hidden turning points designed specifically to awaken your true strength. Today we'll embark on an extraordinary journey, revealing powerful lessons from ancient Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, whose timeless wisdom has inspired leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday heroes alike. Whether you're battling career pressures, financial anxieties, or personal struggles, this story holds secrets that could transform your toughest trials into your most rewarding victories. Make sure to watch until the end, because the conclusion might just change your life. And if this message speaks to you, please subscribe now and join our growing community dedicated to mindful living and purposeful growth. Imagine you are lying quietly in your bed, the bustle of the day only a fading memory, and the silence of the night providing a gentle lull. In that stillness, as you drift between the waking world and the realm of dreams, your mind may wander toward the choices you have made in life, the circumstances that have guided you, and the unknown roads that still lie ahead. For many of us, these moments of hushed reflection often give way to anxious mental chatter, worries about tomorrow or regrets about the past. Yet, what if you could replace that restless internal monologue with a more stabilizing and peaceful companion, namely, the distilled wisdom of ancient philosophies? If it sounds lofty, consider that contemplative teachings from traditions such as Stoicism, Taoism, often spelled Taoism, and various existential schools of thought have soothed restless hearts for centuries. As you picture yourself in that transitional space before sleep, these teachings could cradle your mind like a gentle stream. Stoicism, epitomized by figures like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca, nudges us to focus on what we can control rather than obsess over external events. Taoism suggests that one who flows with life's currents, letting go of rigid expectations, finds harmony and ease. Existentialism acknowledges our deep-seated longing for meaning in a world that does not automatically hand it to us, highlighting the courage it takes to shape our own significance. Each philosophical stream can offer comfort, reflection, and a pathway to calm introspection. But these philosophies are not merely dusty texts for scholars debating in the corridors of academia. Instead, they function as hands-on toolkits for dealing with life's everyday frictions. In many ways, philosophy is humanity's best attempt at living a more meaningful life, serving as a compass in an often chaotic and unpredictable world. Stoicism, for example, emphasizes resilience, reminding us that our suffering often arises from our own perceptions. Taoism teaches that we need not struggle against the inexorable currents of life, but rather move in harmony with them. Existentialism instructs us to create meaning out of life's inherent ambiguity. The synergy of these perspectives invites us to consider how, instead of defaulting to worry, we might greet each night with a serene acceptance of what has been and a hopeful curiosity for what is yet to come. Visualize letting go of your attachments, your insistence on controlling outcomes, and your criticisms of yourself and others. In doing so, you embrace imperfection, cherishing the cracks and scars that weave a richer narrative than any pristine veneer ever could. It is in these imperfections that authenticity thrives, because life is inherently messy, full of detours and unexpected turns. Most of the beauty we find emerges not from a meticulously planned script, but from the spontaneous unraveling of events we can neither script nor anticipate. And so, just as you are drifting, you might guide yourself into a state of reflection that sets aside the worries of the day, acknowledging that tomorrow's concerns are not yet within your grasp. Meanwhile, from a cosmic vantage point, our personal dramas seem insignificant, a mere whisper in the grand tapestry of existence. Yet, those whispers can echo meaningfully if approached with mindful intent. We cannot hold on to every fleeting concern, but we can, with discipline and compassion, glean lessons and cultivate presence. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that much of our stress is self-imposed, an outgrowth of our refusal to align ourselves with the natural order of things. Letting go in this sense is not about giving up ambition or sitting passively. Rather, it is about dancing gracefully with life's uncertainties, riding its waves rather than futilely trying to stop them. In that sense, philosophy becomes a lullaby, one that soothes the troubled mind. If our daily existence can be filled with purposeful actions, grateful awareness, and a sense of acceptance, then even the hush of night can harbor the seeds of renewal. When dawn arrives, we wake not with the heaviness of unspent anxieties, but with the clarity that arises from self-awareness. Night after night, these reflections accumulate, shaping how we perceive ourselves and the world. Over time, a shift occurs. Instead of life feeling like an endless series of tasks or obligations, it starts to feel like a deeply treasured journey, guided by an inner compass of wisdom. The notion of letting go stands as a recurring motif across many philosophical and spiritual traditions. Taoism places strong emphasis on this principle, often illustrating it through the concept of wu wei, or effortless action. Perhaps the simplest way to imagine wu wei is to visualize a river carrying a piece of driftwood. The wood does not fight the current, nor does it direct itself toward the bank. It surrenders to the natural flow. In our contemporary fast-paced environment where achievements and measurable goals are almost fetishized, the idea of relinquishing control seems alien. Yet, ironically, discovering that sweet spot of not forcing outcomes can illuminate a life of ease. Far from implying laziness or apathy, wu wei means performing aligned actions, those in rhythm with life's deeper currents. Stoicism, on the other hand, provides a sturdy framework for facing adversities head-on. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal reflections, often known as meditations, he repeatedly emphasized the notion that externals are beyond our power, but our responses remain firmly ours to shape. This perspective encourages us to cultivate an internal equilibrium that external turmoil cannot easily shake. A Stoic lens might guide you to accept the inevitability of loss, hardship, or betrayal, but not in a defeated sense. Instead, it underscores the wise use of your own rational mind to remain steadfast, even when external circumstances swirl into chaos. In acknowledging impermanence, both Stoic and Taoist philosophies resonate with what the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi highlights: the beauty in imperfections and the transient nature of all things. A chipped bowl, an aging wooden floor, or a weather-worn sculpture are not seen as flawed objects waiting to be discarded, but as living testaments to the passage of time. This aesthetic viewpoint compels us to rethink how we measure value, not by pristine appearances, but by stories etched into each scar and fissure. The same logic applies to human life. We often expend huge amounts of energy in pursuit of unattainable perfection, hiding our flaws and painting a facade of unassailable competence. But when we adopt the wabi-sabi perspective, we discover that these flaws are precisely what give us character and define our unique narrative in the grander scheme of existence. Layered atop these teachings is the existential notion of forging meaning in a neutral or indifferent universe. Albert Camus famously suggested that we must imagine the mythic figure Sisyphus, cursed to forever push a boulder uphill, happy, because it is in the act of rebellion and persistently pushing despite the absurd that one finds a semblance of personal meaning. Jean-Paul Sartre echoed a related sentiment, maintaining that humans are condemned to be free and that the essence of our being unfolds through our choices. We are unshackled from any preordained blueprint, yet that very freedom can overwhelm us with anxiety or dread, particularly when we realize how open-ended our life truly is. Yet existentialism can be profoundly liberating, prompting us to live more authentically once we accept the responsibility for crafting our own life path. Embracing all these threads, Taoist acceptance, Stoic resilience, wabi-sabi's aesthetic of impermanence, and existential courage in the face of the absurd, creates a tapestry that can guide us in day-to-day decision-making. Ultimately, each tradition converges on one key insight: we navigate a precarious, unpredictable existence best when we cultivate presence, responsibility, and empathy. The rest, those illusions of total control, are ephemeral and can keep us locked in a cycle of fear and dissatisfaction. One of the more striking philosophies that urges us to step off the hamster wheel of control is Taoism. Traditionally attributed to the semi-mythical figure Lao Tzu, its foundational text, the Tao Te Ching, brims with paradoxes, such as, "When nothing is done, nothing is left undone." At a cursory glance, this might appear as nonsense, but it actually gestures toward letting life unfold organically, rather than living by forced exertion or relentless attempts to dominate outcomes. In modern translations, you might read references to the flow, capturing the essence of the Tao as an eternal unfolding that we as humans are invited to join rather than orchestrate. Letting go is also deeply interwoven into the practice of mindfulness, a concept closely related to Buddhism but embraced by countless modern psychological frameworks as well. Mindfulness suggests a heightened awareness of the present moment without judgment. When we combine it with the Taoist ethos, a life that is more grounded and more open to possibility emerges. For instance, imagine you are working on a creative project and encounter a block. Instead of forcing a solution by overthinking and gradually becoming more frustrated, you step away, breathe, and let your mind rest. Paradoxically, relinquishing control often sparks a fresher perspective and fosters better solutions. It is crucial to recognize that letting go is distinct from apathy. A passive approach can lead to stagnation, but the Taoist perspective of letting go is grounded in trust. Trust that life's rhythms have an intelligence of their own, and that excessive meddling can disrupt our alignment with that natural order. Whether you refer to it as trusting the process, having faith, or accepting the unfolding, the central principle remains: we are participants in a dance, not puppet masters of the entire stage. Stoicism, as exemplified by Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, complements this approach by providing mental fortitude. When we speak about letting go from a Stoic vantage point, it often means letting go of illusions, particularly the illusion that external events conform to our wishes. While Taoism offers a gentle push toward living in flow, Stoicism buttresses that lesson with a set of practical techniques to remain emotionally balanced. Practices like negative visualization help us prepare emotionally for the worst while continuing to act responsibly in the present. By mentally rehearsing possible adverse outcomes, we reduce the element of shock if they do occur, and paradoxically learn to appreciate more fully what we do have. Despite these differences in flavor, Taoist fluidity and Stoic rational discipline both highlight that we can find serenity and resilience by ceasing to wage war on reality. In a world of breakneck change, with our devices buzzing relentlessly and social pressures mounting, rediscovering the art of letting go can serve as a precious psychological lifeline. Like travelers who learn to pack lightly, we can adopt the philosophical stance of traveling through life with fewer mental burden. Each time we release some of that weight, be it resentment, an unrealistic expectation, or the craving for total certainty, we move with a lighter step, discovering anew how to truly live. Reflect for a moment on the relentless quest for perfection that saturates modern culture. The airbrushed images, the curated social media feeds, and the persistent internal voice insisting we must outdo ourselves or risk falling behind. This chase often leads to a draining cycle, devoid of lasting fulfillment. In the backdrop, a philosophy like wabi-sabi reminds us that the pursuit of flawless beauty or unblemished achievement is not only unrealistic but also detrimental to genuine human experience. Wabi-sabi, an aesthetic and philosophical worldview born from Zen Buddhism, underscores the transience of life. It teaches that real beauty is found in the interplay of birth, growth, decay, and eventual dissolution. Consider the iconic Japanese art of kintsugi, wherein broken pottery is mended with lacquer mixed with gold or silver powder, making the repaired cracks visible and indeed a central part of the piece's appeal. The resulting bowl or vase does not hide the repair job, rather it celebrates the fractures and the story behind them. Through kintsugi, what is broken becomes even more precious because it has persevered despite its fractures. In translating this to our daily lives, we might realize that our emotional or psychological scars can similarly be embraced rather than hidden. Those cracks and lines tell stories of resilience, transformation, and personal depth. In a world that often prioritizes rapid consumption and effortless discarding, Wabi Sabi calls us to slow down and truly see. It's a message that resonates across cultures, especially at a time when we toss items at the first sign of wear and tear and measure success by ever-shifting external benchmarks. By pausing to appreciate a chipped mug or to savor a faded photograph that has captured a fleeting moment in time, we learn to find worth in what society typically labels as flawed. Viewed from an emotional perspective, this mindset can also ease the burden of our imperfections. Instead of berating ourselves for every shortcoming, we can experience a softening, a release, when we understand that our flaws are integral to our unique narrative. The notion of acceptance resonates vividly here as well. In Stoicism, acceptance frames how we respond to what we cannot control: fate, the passing of time, the unpredictability of events. Wabi Sabi parallels that acceptance by celebrating weathered corners, cracks, or tarnished surfaces as the marks of time. Existentialism, for its part, also underscores a form of acceptance. We must accept the condition of being thrown into a universe without a preordained meaning, forging our significance along the way. Looked at collectively, these three vantage points, Stoic, Wabi Sabi, and existential, emerge into a single guiding principle: that contentment doesn't come from resisting or denying life's imperfections, but from assimilating them into our tapestry of meaning. Thus, letting go of the need to appear perfect or to orchestrate perfect outcomes becomes an act of liberation. Freed from the mania of chasing illusions, we're able to direct our energies more productively into relationships, personal growth, and creative endeavors. We can show up more fully in our daily interactions, not as carefully edited avatars, but as multifaceted beings who carry the wisdom gleaned from our cracks and the humility that emerges from acknowledging our own transience. Instead of feeling crushed when life or relationships do not unfold perfectly, we see the process as a continuum of growth, gently guiding us to refine ourselves and awaken to the inherent worth in each passing moment. Let us shift focus now and explore the concept of slow living, a contemporary movement that resonates profoundly with ancient ideas. At its core, slow living is about rejecting the frenzy of hyper-speed modern life to create space for presence, intentional action, and meaningful connections. Rooted in mindfulness, slow living shares kinship with the philosophical traditions discussed. It aligns with Taoism through its invitation to flow and with Stoicism's measured approach to what genuinely deserves our energy. Moreover, it resonates with Wabi Sabi by finding depth in the ordinary and acceptance in the ephemeral. Consider how many of us wake up each morning to a shrill alarm, then plow through email, social media, work demands, and countless errands, only to collapse at night feeling numb or unsatisfied. Hours, days, years slip by as we chase an elusive sense of completion. In slow living, we intentionally reverse this script. We might begin the day with a quiet ritual, perhaps mindful breathing or a simple gratitude practice, that sets a calmer tone. In place of eating a rushed breakfast in the car, we might savor a modest meal with full attention, noticing flavors and textures we usually ignore in the hustle. Over time, these subtle shifts accumulate, recalibrating our relationship with time itself. Critics of slow living might argue that it is an unattainable luxury, reserved for those with ample financial or social resources. Indeed, not everyone can spontaneously quit their demanding job and move to a countryside cottage. But even in the midst of a busy schedule, micro-habits can help us harness the essence of slow living. 10 minutes of silent reflection each morning, unsubscribing from unnecessary notifications, or setting aside an hour each day for genuine human connection can yield surprisingly transformative effects. Crucially, slow living also addresses the paradox of consumer culture. We often equate more speed and more consumption with better living, but find ourselves unfulfilled. By practicing voluntary simplicity, we learn to differentiate between genuine needs and fleeting desires. Rather than chasing the latest gadget or fashion trend, we may discover deeper satisfaction in fewer, more cherished belongings. This shift extends beyond material goods. It also shapes how we engage with experiences, from how we travel to how we allocate our creative energy. The slower approach fosters a sense of presence, enabling us to connect more intimately with the here and now. In a sense, slow living is the modern echo of timeless wisdom traditions, each reminding us that we cannot outrun existential angst by running faster. Slowing down, letting go of needless possessions, and cultivating mindful routines are not about withdrawing from ambition or the joys of achievement. Rather, they are about ensuring that what we do outwardly aligns with our deeper, inner values, allowing us to retain a core of calm stability in a frenetic world. What then if we combine these varied philosophies, Stoicism, Taoism, existentialism, wabi-sabi, and slow living, into a cohesive approach to daily life? The synergy could be remarkable. Stoicism might be the anchor that keeps you grounded in the face of adversity, reminding you to focus on what lies within your control. Taoism could serve as the undercurrent of harmony, guiding you to act in alignment with the natural flow rather than forcing resistance. Wabi-sabi would train your eye and heart to find depth in imperfection, thereby reducing the crippling anxieties around flawlessness. Existentialism would empower you to boldly craft meaning in a universe that does not explicitly offer it, while slow living ensures you do not become lost in frantic pursuits, thereby protecting your capacity for rich, deliberate experience. Practical examples abound. If you encounter a setback at work, say a project not meeting your expectations, Stoicism's teachings might encourage you to regroup calmly, controlling your internal response and gleaning lessons from the experience. Taoism would invite you to pivot gracefully, adapting to what arises naturally rather than clinging to a rigid plan. Wabi-sabi could help you see that the imperfect outcome may contain hidden potential for creativity or a more authentic expression of your initial idea. The existential lens might prompt you to reflect on how you could still shape a meaningful narrative out of the project's trajectory, forging meaning from the failure that no external authority can define for you. Finally, by engaging a slow-living sensibility, you resist the temptation to rush a frantic fix, instead taking time to reevaluate, refine your approach, and produce a better, more considered result. Similarly, in personal relationships, these philosophies interplay to foster depth and resilience. Stoicism teaches emotional poise in disagreements, preventing needless escalation. Taoism encourages you to remain fluid, understanding that relationships evolve and that trying to rigidly control a loved one is counterproductive. The wabi-sabi viewpoint might help you appreciate the quirks and imperfections in your partner or friends, seeing them not as flaws to be corrected, but as distinctive features that lend color and depth to the connection. Existential insights remind you to take responsibility for cultivating genuine intimacy. No universal script dictates how relationships should unfold, so embrace the freedom and sometimes the anxiety that comes with forging a unique bond. Finally, slow living invites consistent, quality time spent together, free from digital distractions or overwhelming schedules that hamper emotional bonding. Each tradition has something distinct to say about adversity as well. When tragedy strikes or life throws severe challenges your way, a health crisis, job loss, or relational breakup, Stoicism guides you to remain steadfast, building inner resilience and controlling your reactions. Taoism helps you bend like bamboo rather than snapping, trusting that life still carries you forward. Wabi-sabi ensures you recognize that brokenness can be a path to unexpected beauty. Existentialism urges you to wrest meaning from pain, using it as a crucible for growth. Slow living, finally, helps you avoid compounding the crisis with panicked busyness. In this collective mosaic, adversity transforms from a purely negative force into a catalyst for deeper self-acknowledge and compassion, both for yourself and others. Philosophy, in the end, is not an academic exercise but an invitation to live more profoundly. It begs us to notice that the passage of a single day is itself a tapestry of experiences, mundane tasks, fleeting interactions, fleeting emotions, woven together by our interpretative lens. If that lens is clouded by anxiety, perfectionism, or unexamined assumptions, we will inevitably reduce the day's fullness to a disjointed jumble. But if we adopt a more mindful, spacious stance, the everyday events can become a canvas for reflection, wisdom, and growth. This is where existentialism offers a final, potent reminder. Meaning is not a commodity you can buy, inherit, or passively receive. It is the fruit of actively choosing how to live. Jean-Paul Sartre insisted that existence precedes essence. We find ourselves thrown into existence, and it is our responsibility to shape who we become. Albert Camus, grappling with the notion of the absurd, urged us to persist anyway, to push our personal boulders up existential hills, forging rebellious joy in the face of cosmic silence. There is a resolute dignity in this stance, one that can transform the simplest daily acts, making coffee, sending an email, reading a bedtime story, into expressions of our chosen values. Letting go, in sum, emerges as a multifaceted skill, releasing illusions of control, unclenching the pursuit of a fantasized perfection, and accepting that flux and impermanence are inescapable. The Stoic discipline, Taoist flow, wabi-sabi's reverence for the imperfect, the existential impetus to create meaning, and the mindful pace of slow living all converge on a singular aspiration, to inhabit the present moment fully and courageously, anchored by a well-placed sense of self-responsibility. When that sense of letting go becomes a nightly ritual, gently cradling your consciousness as you slip into sleep, you can awaken with a calmer perspective. No longer are you burdened by fruitless regrets or petrifying concerns about the future. Instead, you begin each day from a mental posture shaped by acceptance, clarity, and openness, ready to face what comes with resilience and curiosity. While none of these philosophical traditions denies the inevitable challenges of being human, all highlight that suffering can be substantially lessened when we realign our worldview. In that realignment, we do not abandon our hopes or aspirations, but we temper them with wisdom and compassion for ourselves and others. Thus concludes the first segment of our expanded exploration, weaving strands from ancient and modern wisdom into a blueprint for introspective calm. The subsequent parts will delve deeper into specific traditions like existentialism, wabi-sabi, slow living, and the nuances of letting go in modern society. We will also see how these concepts connect with heartfelt human experiences, such as love, self-discovery, and moral accountability, a testament to the enduring power of these philosophies to guide us through life's intricate dance. Part 2 begins with a closer look at existential thought, particularly the perspectives of two monumental figures, Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus. Though often conflated, their viewpoints illuminate divergent yet complementary pathways within existentialism. Sartre famously wrote about radical freedom and the weight of responsibility that freedom entailed. He insisted that humans find themselves without a predefined essence and must take full accountability for shaping their own character through continuous choices. For many, this can feel both exhilarating and terrifying. It means one cannot simply point to fate, social conditioning, or a deity to explain one's life trajectory. Rather, it underscores that each person is a self-defining agent, forging identity by the interplay of decision and action. Camus, meanwhile, took a slightly different tack with his philosophy of the absurd. He argued that humans are locked in a perpetual quest for meaning in an indifferent universe, leading to an inherent dissonance. Rather than capitulating to despair, however, Camus proposed a form of rebellion, consciously embracing the absurd and living with defiance and personal integrity. In his pivotal work, The Myth of Sisyphus, he reimagines Sisyphus, doomed to roll a boulder uphill for eternity, as a figure of quiet triumph. By choosing to continue despite the Sisyphean cycle, Sisyphus embraces his fate and thereby injects personal meaning into an otherwise meaningless chore. For modern readers, both Sartre and Camus pose the question, what do you do when you realize life has no pre-assigned script? Their answers converge on a notion of authenticity. Sartre would say, you become the author of your existence, while Camus might say you rebel against the emptiness by forging your own sense of purpose, one day at a time. Existential authenticity, therefore, arises from acknowledging the raw facts of life, freedom, responsibility, mortality, and proceeding nonetheless with a sense of personal project and chosen values. How does this existential authenticity relate to everyday life? Consider how many people drift through careers or relationships on autopilot, guided by inherited assumptions or social norms. The existential viewpoint prompts a deeper examination. Is this truly who I want to be? Am I living a life that resonates with my values? Or am I merely fulfilling roles I've never questioned? Perhaps you chose a career in law because it was deemed prestigious, or maybe you remain in an unfulfilling relationship because it feels socially expected. Existential authenticity says you can step back, reevaluate, and if necessary, pivot. Yes, it may bring discomfort, especially as old illusions crumble, yet stepping into an authentic path can yield profound relief and genuine self-respect once the initial anxiety subsides. Importantly, existentialism dovetails with Stoic ideas about focusing on what is within our power. In existential terms, we can't choose the fundamental conditions of our birth, but we can choose how to respond. The universe, in Camus' framing, may be silent, but that silence is akin to a blank canvas. Rather than bemoaning the lack of cosmic instructions, we can paint our own pictures of meaning using the medium of everyday choices. Each painting is unique, and because it emerges from personal volition and risk, it becomes genuinely ours. Therein lies the heart of existential empowerment, a bold acceptance that while the cosmos may offer no blueprint, our creative capacity for forging significance is boundless. Now let us draw connections between existentialism and the notion of letting go. At first glance, they may appear contradictory. Existentialism emphasizes responsibility and active choice, while letting go can sound like relinquishing. Yet these threads intertwine harmoniously when we realize that letting go pertains mostly to illusions of certainty and external validation. Existentialism calls for authenticity, which requires jettisoning false narratives, like the belief that our worth depends on meeting socially ordained milestones, or that we can only be happy if we follow a narrow script. In the existential framework, letting go often means recognizing we do not need external affirmations to be who we choose to be. We can let go of the craving for universal approval or for some grand cosmic certification that we are doing life right. We see this vividly in Camus' idea of rebellion, continuing to push our personal boulder uphill without expecting external applause. It is an act of internal resolve, anchored in self-chosen values. Similarly, Sartre's concept of bad faith warns us about deceiving ourselves to avoid the weight of freedom. When we let go of illusions, such as the notion that we have no choice or that fate has cornered us, what remains is the liberating yet challenging truth that we are free. But existential letting go is also a letting go of final answers. Sartre famously claimed, "Man is condemned to be free," suggesting that every attempt to finalize or escape this freedom is an act of self-deception. We do not get to rest on fixed laurels. Each new situation demands fresh choices. Seen positively, this endless process of re-choosing can become a dynamic expression of self-creation, an ongoing canvas for moral imagination. In a day-to-day sense, suppose you find yourself yearning for a simpler existence free from complexities, or maybe you blame your circumstances, family background, a less-than-ideal job for your sense of confinement. The existential perspective says, yes, your situation may be challenging, but it does not negate your freedom to respond in a more empowered and creative way. You can let go of the complacent narrative that you are a mere pawn. Instead, you can adopt the approach of a radical agent who can, at the very least, shape your mental posture and incremental steps toward a more authentic life. By weaving existential letting go with Stoic acceptance, you achieve a balanced approach. You accept external realities beyond your control, but you also cling firmly to the freedom inherent in your own choices. Add a dash of Taoism, and you can ride these existential waves in a more graceful, fluid manner, remembering that forcing or denying life's currents often yields stress rather than solutions. Meanwhile, a wabi-sabi perspective can serve as a gentle reminder that your existential journey does not have to be pristine. The cracks and regrets along the way form part of the tapestry of your personal evolution. Letting go, then, is not passively abandoning your agency, it is relinquishing the notion that you are or should be unchangeable. You remain open to flux, redefinition, and even contradiction, all of which can be stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. Next, let us immerse ourselves in the concept of wabi-sabi a bit more thoroughly, aligning its quiet ethos with the restless pulse of modern existence. Rooted in Zen Buddhism, wabi-sabi gently reminds us that everything is in a constant dance of emerging and dissolving. Whether it's the patina on an old wooden table or the wrinkles forming at the corner of your eyes, wabi-sabi finds an understated grace in these signs of life lived and time passing. There is a serene humility in accepting that everything, beauty, youth, prosperity, has its season, after which it yields to the next stage of the cycle. Our contemporary world is often dominated by mass production, where uniformity is prized and flaws are swiftly corrected or discarded. The wabi-sabi lens challenges us to pause and behold the ephemeral world with reverence. Picture an ancient teapot with a handle smoothed by countless cups of tea poured over decades, each scratch and stain revealing a story. If we adopt this viewpoint in our everyday life, we become more attuned to the nuance, the subtle textures, and the unrepeatable uniqueness of fleeting moments. We cease to see cracks as mere problems. Rather, they become narratives of resilience or transformations that have shaped a new, unexpected form. Translating wabi-sabi into personal behavior means approaching your own growth and even your failings with gentleness. For instance, if you begin learning a new skill, like painting or playing the guitar, wabi-sabi would encourage you to relish those early awkward strokes or off-key notes as essential footprints of your journey. Over time, these imperfections evolve into a distinctive personal style. The same principle could apply to relationships. Minor conflicts, misunderstandings, or shared adversities gradually sculpt the relationship's texture, often deepening the bond rather than diminishing it, provided both parties bring empathy and humility to the table. Such an outlook stands in stark contrast to societies that obsess over hyper-perfection, whether in careers, social media presentations, or physical appearances. We chase illusions of flawlessness that rarely mirror the complexity of real life. Embracing wabi-sabi opens up a new dimension, the acceptance that raw edges can be more compelling than sterile uniformity. It fosters gratitude for the present iteration of ourselves and our surroundings, even if they are unfinished or less than perfect. Crucially, wabi-sabi also fosters a sense of gratitude. When you see each moment and each thing as fleeting, you become less likely to rush past experiences, discarding them as stepping stones to something better. Instead, you linger, fully perceiving the intangible essence that might soon be gone. This deepens your sense of presence, which resonates with the mindful approaches found in both slow living and broader philosophical traditions. In the interplay between wabi-sabi's acceptance of imperfection and existentialism's call to create meaning, we find a synergy. We are called to embrace the ephemeral nature of existence and to treat that ephemerality as an impetus to live more intentionally. Moving on to the theme of slow living more directly, in a world that rewards speed, efficiency, and a relentless hustle, choosing to live slowly can be seen as a radical act of defiance. Far from promoting laziness or complacency, slow living reorients us toward depth over breadth. Instead of scattering ourselves across countless commitments and tasks, we focus on doing a few things with genuine care and attention. Think of it as the difference between mechanically gulping down a meal versus savoring each bite, noticing flavors, textures, and the sense of nourishment that emerges when eating becomes a mindful ritual rather than a perfunctory habit. To incorporate slow living into daily life, we might begin by identifying pockets of slowness. These are small intervals, perhaps early morning or late evening, where we deliberately detach from the digital sphere and all demands that hamper reflection. Some individuals find it transformative to ban all digital devices from the bedroom, turning those final moments before sleep and the first moments upon waking into contemplative spaces. Others dedicate weekend mornings to unhurried pursuits such as reading, journaling, or walking in nature. However modest, these pockets can accumulate, changing the rhythm and character of your week. At a broader level, slow living invites us to consider the quality of our activities. Are we simply ticking boxes, or do we experience tasks as meaningful engagements with the world? For instance, if you are reading a book, does your mind wander off every few minutes to check notifications on your phone? Or do you truly immerse yourself in the author's words? In practicing slow living, you might deliberately reduce the sheer volume of content you consume, favoring depth and retention over quick scanning. Similar to a chef who meticulously chooses a few premium ingredients rather than tossing random items into a pot, a slow living approach fosters curation over accumulation. Of course, critics might argue that modern economics and social structures rarely permit a leisurely pace for everyone. Many juggle multiple jobs or responsibilities that do not lend themselves easily to elongated reflective moments. Yet even in these situations, it's possible to adopt a slow-living mindset in microform. You can incorporate a few minutes of mindful breathing during lunch breaks or a single conversation each day where you give undivided attention. You might limit social media usage or reorganize your schedule so that obligations align more smoothly, thus reducing daily chaos. While the broader system may not readily accommodate a slower pace, personal strategies can carve out pockets of calm. The synergy between slow living and the other philosophies we have touched on becomes apparent here. Slow living resonates with the Stoic principle of focusing on what is essential and truly within your control, ignoring the clamorous background noise of trivialities. It also harmonizes with Taoism's acceptance of natural rhythms, inviting us to reduce hurried interventions in life's unfolding. It mirrors Wabi-Sabi's appreciation for the authenticity and depth found in ordinary tasks like sipping tea, reading a passage, or walking in a quiet neighborhood. And from an existential vantage point, slowing down can facilitate the reflection needed to make conscious choices in shaping our identity, ensuring we are not merely on autopilot. By weaving these approaches into a cohesive mindset, we can mitigate the feeling that life is slipping through our fingers at breakneck speed. Instead, we gradually sculpt a lifestyle that prioritizes presence, fosters deeper relationships, and reduces stress, while nurturing a sense that every moment, no matter how small, can be imbued with personal significance. Shifting to the realm of love and human connection, we find that similar principles apply. Here, we can bring in the viewpoints of Erich Fromm, whose influential work, The Art of Loving, reframed love from a mere feeling to a discipline that requires practice and dedication. Fromm challenged the notion that love is an effortless, magical state that just happens if the stars align. Instead, he contends that love is an art form, comparable to playing an instrument, necessitating study, practice, and a constant willingness to improve. In the context of letting go, this means releasing the idea that love must be perfect, or that one's partner must fulfill an impossible checklist of expectations. Fromm delineates multiple forms of love: brotherly love, erotic love, self-love, and the love of God, and highlights their interconnectedness. Each in its own way requires care, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. This approach resonates with the acceptance found in Wabi-Sabi, reminding us that relationships too carry cracks and complexities, but these can deepen intimacy rather than destroy it if approached with openness and compassion. Self-love is especially pertinent, not narcissistic self-obsession, but a respect for one's own dignity. If we neglect that foundational layer, we risk approaching relationships from a place of deficiency, expecting external validations to compensate for an internal void. By letting go of this hollow craving, we free ourselves to love more authentically, becoming givers rather than perpetual seekers. This ties seamlessly into existentialism's call for responsibility, recognizing that the quality of our relationships is in large part a reflection of our chosen engagement. Moreover, slow living can improve our approach to love by reminding us to invest time and mindful presence into relationships. Rushed, superficial interactions are the antithesis of Fromm's perspective, which requires depth, active listening, and consistent acts of caring. Stoic resilience, similarly, helps us keep our emotional equilibrium when conflicts arise, while Taoist flow encourages us not to force matters of the heart into preconceived molds. In synergy, these teachings shape a holistic understanding, We can practice love as an ongoing art, shaped by daily attentiveness and a willingness to let go of illusions about how love should be. Ultimately, Fromm's invitation to be an active participant in the art of loving resonates with all the philosophies we have encountered. It is not about passively waiting for a perfect partner or a perfect moment. It is about skill building, reflection, humility, and the grace to acknowledge that every misstep is a chance to learn. From an existential vantage, love becomes another arena where we define ourselves through our choices. Instead of drifting into or out of love, we stand in it, forging a deeper bond that can weather life's storms. Now, let us bring these ideas into a unifying reflection with the help of yet another ancient voice, Seneca, the Roman Stoic whose letters continue to inspire and comfort readers centuries later. In works such as Letters from a Stoic, he addresses a range of practical concerns, time management, grief, anger, and more, always urging his correspondents to cultivate wisdom through self-awareness and disciplined habits. Among Seneca's recurring themes is the preciousness of time, a notion that underscores many of the approaches we have considered. He laments how carelessly people treat their hours, treating them as if they were infinite while fiercely guarding trivial material possessions. The Stoic approach is to invert those priorities, treat time as a non-renewable asset, use it wisely, and let lesser concerns slide. This resonates strongly with slow living, which pushes back against mindless busyness. Both highlight that our most limited resource is time, so we should be deliberate in how we spend it, whether reading a nourishing book, having a heartfelt conversation, or engaging in reflective solitude. Seneca also wrote eloquently about facing adversity, closely paralleling existentialist calls to forge meaning amidst life's unpredictabilities. When we accept that difficulties are inescapable, we can mentally prepare by rehearsing adversity, a technique known as negative visualization. The idea is not to become a perpetual pessimist but to acclimatize ourselves to potential setbacks so that, if they do occur, we are psychologically ready. This technique fosters an inner tranquility that merges seamlessly with Taoist acceptance. In this sense, Seneca's reflections align with the practice of letting go of illusions about life being immune to sorrow or disruption. By acknowledging fragility, we paradoxically find greater stability. In terms of relationships, Seneca consistently underscores the virtues of empathy, kindness, and rational discourse, offering a timeless counterpoint to the divisive or shallow forms of engagement we often see today. His perspective harmonizes with Fromm's emphasis on love as an active commitment, as well as with the wabi-sabi reverence for the imperfect friend or partner. In forgiving flaws, both our own and others, we forge deeper, more resilient bonds. Remarkably, Seneca's practical wisdom also touches on existential aspects. He repeatedly exhorts readers to take hold of their own minds, to shape their destiny through wise deliberation and moral action. In doing so, he champions an ethic of personal freedom. While external forces can confine or harm us, we remain free to interpret and respond according to reason. This echoes existentialism's claim that while we do not choose the givens of our situation, we retain an inner freedom to define ourselves within those constraints. Finally, let us not ignore how Seneca recognized the value of personal reflection. He believed in journaling, quiet time spent at the end of each day evaluating one's actions, praising what was done well, and setting intentions for improvement. Woven through the Stoic threads, this daily reflection, this mindful slow down, foreshadows the slow living approach. Instead of drifting from day to day, we can glean wisdom by pausing, noticing patterns, and shaping tomorrow's direction more consciously. In that sense, every night becomes an invitation to let go of regrets, illusions, or petty fixations, awakening the next morning with renewed clarity for the tasks at hand. Bringing it all together, we find that each tradition, Stoicism, Taoism, existentialism, wabi-sabi, slow living, Fromm's insights on love, and Seneca's letters, reveals overlapping truths about the human condition. Each tradition underscores in its unique language that while external events remain uncertain, our inner stance is ours to cultivate. They highlight the inevitability of imperfection and flux, offering guidance on how to harmonize with them rather than waste our energy in futile opposition. One might summarize this confluence of philosophies as an expansive invitation. Acknowledge the ephemeral nature of existence. Treat each day as a singular opportunity for presence. Honor the complexities of relationships by nurturing them actively. Handle adversity with composure, and strive to be a co-creator of life's meaning rather than a bystander. By letting go of illusions while simultaneously taking responsibility for our choices, we discover that life need not be perfect to be profoundly fulfilling. Paradoxically, the more we align ourselves with these principles, the more we realize that letting go is not synonymous with passivity. It is a moral discipline that clarifies what is within our control and what is not. We can let go of the frantic chase for superficial success, the destructive illusions of absolute control, and the crippling fear of being flawed. In doing so, we reclaim time to reflect, breathe, connect, love, and create. We embrace a sense of self that is neither subservient to external validations nor consumed by existential dread, but that stands balanced between acceptance and purposeful engagement. Crucially, these ideas are more than intellectual curiosities, they are living guides. You can try them out on an average morning by practicing mindful silence before plunging into your tasks. You can apply them in traffic jams by recentering your mind instead of succumbing to anger or impatience. You can adopt them in interpersonal conflicts by choosing compassion over defensiveness. Bit by bit, these daily experiments accumulate into a significant transformation in how you experience life. As we conclude this second part of our journey, reflect on which strand resonates most with you. Is it the existential impetus to create meaning? The Stoic resilience that meets challenges head-on? The wabi-sabi acceptance of imperfection? The gentle flow of Taoist letting go? Or the deliberate pacing of slow living? Perhaps, upon introspection, you will discover a personal tapestry that weaves elements of each. That is the essence of philosophical exploration, not rigid adherence to a single dogma, but a thoughtful synthesis that enriches your unique perspective and circumstances. In Part 3, let us delve into more practical strategies for weaving these rich philosophical teachings into contemporary life. While the theories may sound inspiring in principle, many people struggle to incorporate them into daily routines. The gap between understanding a concept intellectually and living it experientially can be vast. Yet, bridging that gap is possible when we transform philosophies into habits and mindsets. A first, crucial step is cultivating mindful awareness. Mindfulness does not require hours of meditation per se, though it can be helpful, but can be as simple as consciously pausing at intervals throughout the day. Notice your breath for a minute, scan your body for tension, and ask yourself, where is my attention right now? Is it here in this moment, or is it mired in the past or anxiously clinging to the future? By applying these micro-pauses, you shift from autopilot to an awakened posture. This habit resonates with Stoic self-examination, Buddhist practices, Taoist acceptance, and even slow living's emphasis on presence. Next, consider voluntary simplicity. This does not mean you have to give away all possessions or live as an ascetic, but it does invite thoughtful curation of what you own and how you spend your time. Are there subscriptions, habits, or obligations that no longer serve you? By methodically eliminating clutter, physical, digital, or emotional, you regain mental bandwidth to live more intentionally. This approach aligns with wabi-sabi's ethic of cherishing the essential over the superfluous, as well as Fromm's view that genuine love thrives when it is not drowned in trivial distractions. You might also adopt a practice of negative visualization, a Stoic exercise that trains your mind to handle loss with less turmoil. Imagine for a moment losing a possession or an opportunity you hold dear. Let your mind explore that possibility. Initially, this might feel unsettling, but in the process, you learn how you might cope and discover an underlying resilience. This training helps moderate the fear of change or adversity, reinforcing the notion that what truly matters is often intangible: character, relationships, the pursuit of wisdom. In relationships, active listening and empathic engagement serve as the bedrock for practicing the art of love. Instead of passively hearing someone's words while formulating your response, you give full presence. This approach resonates with Fromm's requirement that love is not a fleeting emotion but an active state of caring, responsibility, respect, and knowledge. The simple shift from half-listening to wholeheartedly listening can radically improve interpersonal dynamics, reduce misunderstandings, and foster deeper trust. If you lean toward existential anxieties, you might adopt a journaling exercise each night. Summarize how you lived your day in alignment with your core values. Ask, in which moments did I feel truly alive? Did I make choices based on authenticity, or did I succumb to external pressures? Over time, such journaling can uncover patterns of inauthentic living, prompting you to realign. This practice pairs nicely with Seneca's advice about ending each day by reviewing one's actions, a daily recalibration that fosters slow, steady personal evolution. Ultimately, these practices are not one-size-fits-all solutions, but building blocks. Like a painter gathering different hues on a palette, you can mix and match them in ways that suit your temperament and life situation. The critical point is consistent, deliberate application. Only then do the philosophies cease to be historical curiosities and become living forces that shape how you think, act, and perceive. The digital era poses new challenges for implementing these philosophical teachings. Our devices, social media platforms, and continuous streams of data can create an environment antithetical to introspection and slowness. Notification after notification, we risk slicing our attention into fragments, seldom allowing ourselves the stillness required to let deep philosophical understanding sink in. Nonetheless, these challenges can be opportunities in disguise, compelling us to refine how we practice letting go, acceptance, or existential freedom. One strategy is to implement boundaries around technology usage, a digital detox, so to speak, even if in a modest form. For instance, designate certain hours of the day, maybe the first hour after waking up and the last hour before sleeping, where you operate phone-free. In that space, you might read a page from Seneca, reflect on a wabi-sabi concept, or practice the Stoic technique of focusing on one crucial task. Such intervals can mimic the oasis of calm that slow living aims to cultivate. From an existential standpoint, the barrage of digital inputs could hamper our capacity to choose reflectively. With so many curated images and opinions flying at us, it becomes easy to fall into bad faith, adopting preferences and goals shaped by algorithms rather than by our own introspection. Recognizing this risk can be the impetus to reassert our autonomy. We might ask, do I really value what I'm scrolling through, or am I simply letting external forces sculpt my world? Grappling with that question can reveal how deeply existential freedom is threatened by our passive digital consumption. At the same time, the modern era offers certain gifts. Access to online communities allows us to discover Stoic reading groups, mindfulness forums, or philosophical discussion circles. Technology can be harnessed to connect with like-minded individuals for accountability, an important factor in ensuring that lofty ideas translate into daily habits. If we use digital tools intentionally, we can enlarge our philosophical community, glean insights from diverse sources, and refine our practice collectively. However, let us not lose sight of the physical realm. Many philosophers, from the ancient Greeks to Zen masters, extol the virtues of nature walks, quiet forests, or meditative gardens as vital spaces for reflection. Even in urban centers, a simple walk through a park can ground us, reminiscent of the Taoist principle of reconnecting with nature's flow, or the wabi-sabi practice of noticing the subtle changes in seasons. These physical immersions allow the mind to decompress from digital clutter, opening it to the more measured pace that fosters introspection. Consequently, living philosophically in the digital age demands intention, boundaries, and adaptation. We cannot simply replicate ancient lifestyles, but we can adapt the underlying wisdom, using technology as a tool rather than a tyrant. The key is remembering that each time we reach for our devices, we have a choice, an existential moment where we decide how we engage with that technology and whether it aids or detracts from our aspiration toward a more mindful, authentic, and deeply connected life. Let us also contemplate the role of adversity in shaping our philosophical journey. Hardships, illness, financial strain, loss, heartbreak are woven into the fabric of human existence. The question is not if adversity will come, but how we will face it. If there is anything that unites Stoicism, existentialism, wabi-sabi, Taoism, and the essence of slow living, it is their recognition that suffering in one form or another is unavoidable, yet it can also be a crucible for growth. The Stoics frequently remind us that adversity is a chance to practice virtue. Seneca wrote that if fortune wishes to test us, it only polishes and refines us, like a sword hammered on an anvil. This is not a justification for passivity or a denial of pain. Rather, it is a call to accept that life's storms can temper our character. Taoism, in parallel, might tell us that resisting storms only magnifies our discomfort. Picture the flexible bamboo in a windstorm. It bends, whereas a rigid tree trunk might snap. This acceptance doesn't eliminate hardship, but it fosters resilience. From an existential perspective, adversity can strip away illusions. When comfortable routines vanish, we may realize how reliant we were on external validations or superficial benchmarks of success. We might feel like Camus' Sisyphus, gazing at a boulder that has rolled back down once more, but in continuing to push that boulder, we reclaim agency. We rebel against despair by forging meaning, no matter how bleak or absurd the external condition. Wabi-sabi, meanwhile, invites us to see adversity as a contour of life's natural cycle, akin to how cracks and breaks can lend objects a profound charm. Perhaps a failed business venture or a broken relationship leaves us feeling fractured. Wabi-sabi teaches that these imperfections can become golden lines of kintsugi, forging a new wholeness that highlights, rather than hides, what was broken. We do not revert to our old form, but we adopt a new form with deeper character. Slow living is especially relevant during hardships, because adversity often compels us to slow down, whether we want to or not. Perhaps an illness sidelines us, forcing us to reorganize priorities. In such times, a slow-living mindset can transform forced inactivity into a reflective period of healing, acceptance, and self-discovery. Instead of resisting the lull, we lean into it, gleaning wisdom from the forced pause. Each of these traditions, therefore, suggests that adversity is not purely destructive but can be instructive. Combined, they offer a multi-layered approach to suffering. A Stoic might counsel you to maintain composure and practice virtue. A Taoist might suggest relaxing your grip and moving with the current. An existentialist would urge you to define your response as an act of self-creation. Wabi-sabi would see the eventual scars as testaments to resilience, and slow living would focus on turning any slowed momentum into an opportunity for deeper introspection. Moreover, adversity often fosters compassion. Once you have personally experienced sorrow or failure, you are more inclined to empathize with others facing similar hardships. This compassion resonates with Fromm's notion of brotherly love, a universal type of compassion that sees all of humanity as interconnected. On a practical level, this means that adversity might not only refine you, but also soften your edges, making you a more empathetic presence in the lives of those around you. Indeed, bridging adversity with compassion transforms personal suffering into communal benevolence, an outcome that all these philosophical traditions would applaud. It is fitting at this juncture to revisit Erich Fromm's perspective on love and adversity. Fromm argues that when relationships endure trials, financial struggles, health issues, or emotional tribulations, the crucial factor is not the presence or absence of conflict, but how partners respond. Do they step up with selfless care, practicing responsibility and respect, or do they retreat into blame and resentment? Fromm suggests that true love is a consistent practice of nurturing the other's well-being, a stance that mirrors the Stoic ethic of moral consistency despite external chaos. Moreover, adversity challenges us to deepen our sense of self-love. If a personal crisis breaks our illusions of infallibility, do we descend into harsh self-criticism, or do we practice a measure of wabi-sabi acceptance, acknowledging that we too are flawed, yet worthy of compassion? From an existential angle, adversity might be precisely the impetus we need to recalibrate our life's direction. Maybe the job layoff or heartbreak is a signal to reevaluate what genuinely matters. In that reevaluation, a new sense of freedom often emerges, one unencumbered by the inertia of old patterns. So, paradoxically, adversity can be a powerful force for catalyzing positive transformation. This does not trivialize the pain involved. Hardship, after all, truly hurts and can derail us temporarily. But by adopting these philosophical frameworks, we equip ourselves with mental and emotional tools to handle the storms. Rather than cursing the skies, we learn to adjust our sails. At the collective level, adversity often bonds communities. Recall how Stoic Roman statesmen like Seneca or Marcus Aurelius endeavored to guide people through plagues and wars with calm rationality. Similarly, in modern times, communal crises such as natural disasters frequently bring out remarkable acts of neighborly kindness, an echo of Fromm's brotherly love. Slow living approaches like pooling resources, sharing homemade meals, or checking in regularly on one another can all intensify during tough times, forging deeper communal ties. From a broader vantage, these philosophies provide a blueprint for resilience that extends beyond personal drama to global or societal challenges. Taoism's emphasis on adaptation, existentialism's stance on personal responsibility, Stoicism's call for virtue, Wabi-sabi's acceptance of impermanence, and slow living's impetus for mindful presence combine to shape ethically grounded, empathetic responses whether we are facing political unrest, environmental calamities, or public health crises. The impetus remains the same. We may not control the external storm, but we can unite in rational compassion and creative problem-solving. Thus, adversity stands as both a personal and collective test. While it can highlight the cracks in our illusions, it simultaneously reveals the gold we can pour into them, our capacity for empathy, choice, and transformation. By integrating these philosophical teachings, we shift adversity from mere suffering to a crucible for forging deeper meaning, strong character, and enduring love. Having surveyed an array of philosophical perspectives, Stoicism, Taoism, existentialism, wabi-sabi, slow living, and Erich Fromm's take on love, one might wonder if it is possible to unify these seemingly disparate teachings into a single life philosophy. While each tradition has its own vocabulary and historical context, the recurring themes are strikingly consistent: acceptance of impermanence, the central role of personal responsibility, the transformative potential of adversity, the liberation found in letting go of illusions, and the sustaining power of genuine connection. Constructing a personal synthesis involves discerning which elements resonate most powerfully with your temperament and life situation. Some people are drawn to the rational clarity of Stoicism, finding solace in its emphasis on emotional regulation. Others are captivated by the fluid serenity of Taoism or the simple aesthetic of wabi-sabi, celebrating life's imperfect beauty. Meanwhile, those wrestling with questions of meaning may find existentialism a stirring anthem for forging personal significance in an indifferent world. And for those motivated by compassion and interpersonal connection, Fromm's understanding of love as an art might form the backbone of their approach. In merging these elements, a helpful method is to identify core principles. For instance, you might adopt Stoic negativity as a mental rehearsal to prevent shock when difficulties arise. Combine that with a wabi-sabi appreciation for the ephemeral nature of life's joys and sorrows, rely on existential courage to shape your own identity, and round it out with slow living practices that ensure you remain present enough to savor each day. This collage is not rigid but evolves over time as your experiences deepen and your perspectives mature. Moreover, having a supportive community or a circle of friends interested in philosophical exploration can galvanize your journey. Discussing these topics at length, comparing experiences, dissecting personal challenges, or even collectively engaging in slow living experiments reinforces your commitment. In a sense, synergy emerges from communal reflection, reminiscent of how ancient philosophical schools functioned as living gatherings rather than mere academic doctrines. The real test of any philosophical stance is practical application. It is relatively easy to read Seneca or a Taoist text and feel a flicker of inspiration. The challenge lies in how you respond the next time you feel anger, disillusionment, or impatience brewing. The moment of tension is the gateway to you revert to habitual reactivity, or do you deploy the mental techniques gleaned from these teachings? Over time, consistent practice reshapes your behavioral defaults, forging new neural pathways and emotional reflexes. Ultimately, if these traditions share a universal essence, it is this: you possess an innate capacity for mindful, responsible, and compassionate living. Yes, the world is uncertain, and you are finite, but your choices, your stance, and your love are forever yours to cultivate and bestow. As we near the conclusion of this lengthy exploration, consider the final perspective, that of serenity in the face of life's final horizon. Death, the ultimate letting go, lurks in the background of every philosophical tradition we have touched. The Stoics repeatedly reminded us that reflecting on mortality is not morbidity, but clarity. Marcus Aurelius suggested that we think of ourselves as already dead, thereby valuing each day as an undeserved gift. This perspective often spurs people to become more deliberate, more emotionally generous, and less entangled in trivialities. Existentialism also frames death as a crucial impetus for authentic living. Knowing that our time is limited can either paralyze us with dread or motivate us to seize each day, forging meaning in the fleeting hours we have. Camus, with his emphasis on the absurd, sees in death the final boundary that shapes all human efforts. Our options are to despair at this boundary or to rebel heroically by savoring life's ephemeral joys. In Taoism, death is another transformation, a return to the great Tao. Rather than an absolute ending, it is part of the cyclical dance of existence. When we consider wabi-sabi, acceptance of the transience of things naturally extends to the recognition of our own impermanence. If we admire a fading autumn leaf for its final burst of color, we might also, by analogy, appreciate the late season of our own life, or that of a loved one, as a poignant culmination rather than an unfortunate decline. Slow living, likewise, encourages us to savor each moment, mindful that life's every chapter ends eventually. In practical terms, acknowledging mortality might translate into simplifying priorities. Many who undergo a life-threatening experience report that they emerge with a refined sense of what truly matters. Perhaps they quit a soul-crushing job to spend more time with family, or they devote themselves to a passion they had long neglected. Seneca would likely applaud such choices, calling them rational reevaluations of life's ephemeral nature. Another dimension is how we approach grief. Fromm's articulation of love suggests that we cannot truly love without risking heartbreak, for all that is precious is vulnerable. Stoicism, while it might appear emotionally reserved, actually encourages a healthy process of grieving, acknowledging our sorrow but not letting it consume us entirely. Taoist wisdom might counsel us to flow with the current of loss, neither resisting nor clinging. Meanwhile, existential awareness can remind us that each relationship is a choice we continually reaffirm, even in memory. Wabi-sabi underscores that the traces left behind by a loved one, be it an old photograph or a note on the fridge, become precious, not despite their fleeting nature, but because of it. Hence, in all these philosophies, the presence of death is not something to cower from. It is integral to how we shape our day-to-day existence. Mortality humbles us, but also inspires us to love more freely, to forgive more willingly, and to live more passionately. It exemplifies the ultimate form of letting go of the fantasy of endless tomorrows, so that we might dwell more fully in the present. Indeed, each breath is both a gift and a rehearsal for the final exhalation. Recognizing that reality can be the catalyst for living in a manner that resonates most deeply with our sense of purpose, compassion, and open-hearted acceptance. We arrive at last at a holistic vantage point that encapsulates this multi-philosophical journey. You have traversed the main insights of Stoicism's resilience, Taoism's gentle acceptance of life's flow, Wabi-sabi's reverence for imperfection and impermanence, existentialism's demand for authenticity amid cosmic silence, slow living's call for mindful pacing, Erich Fromm's conviction that love is an art form, and Seneca's pragmatic Stoic letters that encourage disciplined reflection and cherishing one's time. The unifying thread across these teachings is the proposition that life can be lived more fully if we learn to let go of the illusions that trap us, illusions of perfect control, illusions of guaranteed tomorrows, illusions of unblemished success, illusions that external achievements or possessions can substitute for inner wholeness. Each tradition, in its own vocabulary, urges us to face the uncertainties of existence with an engaged acceptance. By relinquishing the compulsion to mold the world and ourselves into unrealistic ideals, we discover the grace in each moment and in each flawed chapter of our stories. In a practical sense, the path forward lies in daily application. Consider drafting a personal, philosophical charter, gleaning from whichever wisdom traditions most resonate with you. Enumerate a handful of fundamental principles. For example, a vow to practice mindful awareness each morning, a Stoic reflection on potential adversity, a wabi-sabi acceptance of small flaws, a slow-living commitment to curating your engagements, or an existential promise to affirm your freedom by making choices aligned with your cherished values. Write them down, revisit them often, and watch how they inform your actions over time. Be prepared, of course, for the reality that transformation is not instantaneous. Like learning a musical instrument or mastering a martial art, philosophical growth progresses step by step. You may lapse into old habits, ruminations, or illusions. Resist the urge to interpret such lapses as failures. Instead, treat them as signals guiding you back toward mindful practice. Reaffirm your strategies. A moment of quiet for negative visualization, a breath-based pause to let go of anger, a compassionate inquiry into a friend's emotional landscape, or a reorientation toward the life projects that align with your chosen meaning. Ultimately, consider that in letting go, you gain far more than you lose. Shedding illusions paves the way for genuine freedom, sincerity, and emotional composure. Embracing impermanence heightens your appreciation for the ephemeral beauties around you. A friend's laugh, the ephemeral pink of a sunset, the swirl of steam on a morning cup of tea. Yes, life can be messy, flawed, and uncertain, but as Wabi-sabi clarifies, that is precisely where its rawest beauty resides. By adopting an existential stance, you become an author of meaning rather than a passive witness. Slow living ensures you do not blink and find decades gone without recollection. Stoic fortitude helps you endure inevitable storms, while Taoist wisdom encourages a fluid, effortless approach that often accomplishes more than the most strenuous exertion. Fromm's emphasis on love finally imbues every action with a sense of caring, responsibility, reminding you that relationships are the crucible in which wisdom is tested and empathy is honed. In this integrated perspective, letting go is not surrender in the negative sense. It is the conscious choice to release what no longer serves and to embrace what fosters real growth. That sense of freedom might manifest in small actions, pruning your schedule, journaling nightly, or choosing to voice empathy in a heated discussion. Over time, such small actions accumulate to shape a life that, while never perfect, becomes a quietly astonishing tapestry woven from acceptance, understanding, and purposeful engagement. And that, in essence, is what all the greatest sages and philosophers across millennia have been pointing us toward. A life lived consciously and wholeheartedly, an existence that finds its anchor not in illusions, but in the ever-present reality of each unfolding moment, illuminated by reason, compassion, and the art of letting go. Ultimately, every great story, yours included, is defined not by its conflicts but by the resilience of its hero. Today we've explored how embracing Stoic wisdom can turn stress into serenity, doubt into determination, and setbacks into stepping stones for a more meaningful life. Remember, challenges aren't here to break you, they're here to reveal your greatest potential. I'd love to hear your own experiences. How has adversity shaped you, and what lessons have resonated most deeply today? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this important conversation together. Don't forget to subscribe to stay connected, inspired, and empowered as we dive deeper into life's incredible journey.